Hello, and welcome to Hard at Play, Roommates Gaming's bi-weekly video game focused podcast. I'm your host, Justin. There's Josh. Way over there is JT joining us for a special week. And down there, Michael Truesdale. He's a member of our Discord.
Hi.
He's very vocal. He joins in. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Good to be here.
I'm happy to have you guys here. Today, there's a lot of stuff that we could talk about. We could talk about the Devolver Digital Showcase. We could talk about the Nintendo Direct that went live this morning for 8 minutes. That Shin Megami Tensei
5.
Yep. That's all we're going to say about it. We got Shin Megami Tensei 5. We're going to move on. The Cadence of Hyrule stuff is cool and whatever. I can't remember what else they showed in that. We could talk about that. We could talk about... I'm sorry. You okay, Michael? A break him?
Hi. There's so many things we could talk about. What are we going to talk about? I'm excited to know.
Well,
There's only one reason
I'm going to tell you. We are going to talk exclusively about the Ubisoft conference, the video that they put up.
Thank God.
Yep.
I was worried it was going to be The Last of Us 2.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about The Last of Us 2 for the entire episode this week. Minus all this bullshit at the beginning because we have to do this regular rigmarole anyway. So, like I said, this is the Hard at Play podcast. It goes up on YouTube and podcast services every other Friday at 12 o'clock. Usually, we try to do that. Don't hold us to it. Every other Friday, we put up the Sausage Tray, which is our nonsense podcast where we talk about nonsensical things. And we do that a lot, and it's a whole lot of fun. You should check that out too. On Mondays, we put up our gameplay videos on youtube.com/roommatesgaming. There is not an audio equivalent for that because Josh doesn't like you that much.
You don't think it'd be very fun to just listen to our gameplay?
I listen to Critical Role on audio. I mean, see?
That's less visual. You can't see why the hell we're laughing.
Excuses.
When,
Excuses.
Eric's been launched up into the air and we catch him. Like, what the hell do they start wheezing for?
You throw in abuse on Eric, and I have to agree with you. Damn it, you pulled a trump card.
Just make two versions, and one version is descriptive audio, where one of you literally describes everything as it happens on the screen.
It's ASMR descriptive audio.
Play.
To narrate what's happening on the screen.
That's good. We should do that at least once.
And now they're throwing Eric into the air. He does a triple axel, and he's been caught.
We had a silent video for April Fool's Day this year. It's always April Fool's next year. On top of watching our videos and listening to our sweet soothing sounds on your podcast services, check us out on Twitch, Instagram, join our Discord and be part of our stupid conversations. The descriptions and links for all of that is in the description below this video. So please check it out. And now, guys, we're going to talk about The Last of Us 2, which is The Last of Us 2, which is why
The Last of Us 2, right?
Yeah, which is why it's on the screen behind Michael because he did a better job setting up for this than I did. So that's really my intention for this little monitor over here, but I put it there and never put shit on it. Like I just never even hooked it up. So anyway, we're gonna get into some fun stuff.
I'm in Japan.
All right. Full disclosure: we're playing Ghost of Tsushima right now, and it keeps popping up in conversation because we're enjoying it too. I'm enjoying it at least, and I believe the other gentlemen are as well.
I'm trying not to talk about it.
As buggy as that game could be, it's a lot of fun. But we're going to move on to a different type of bugs, cordyceps, which are actually a fungus, not a bug at all. And we're going to talk about The Last of Us. So, gentlemen.
Good transition.
Thank you. I tried. Let's start at the beginning. All of us have played The Last of Us Part 1 because it is a good game. I know myself and Michael played it a long time. All right, I gotta put this to bed real quick. Michael or Truesdale? Which way are we going with it? Now that I've doxed you and given
either way
your full
works. A lot of people call me Truesdale. A lot of people call me Michael.
All right,
I'll answer to either.
Michael Truesdale. So I know myself and Michael Truesdale played it a long time ago, and we enjoyed it. Did you play it at release or the remastered version?
I played it over the holiday 2014.
Okay, so yeah,
I played it. So it was after the remaster came out.
Got you. And Josh, I know you started it a long time ago, but you didn't actually finish it then, right?
Yeah.
And
Same.
the same with you, JT? Okay,
Yep.
cool. So I played it for the remaster when it came to PS4, and I loved that game. My brother played it on PlayStation 3 and told me how good it was, and I'm just like, all right, I respect your opinions on some things, but not a lot. And then I actually checked it out for the remaster, and it's great. I loved it. I loved it from start to finish. So the whole recap there, man loses daughter 20 years later, gets a surrogate daughter, has to take her across the country, and there's like not zombies but kind of zombies, and they're trying to eat everybody, and there's factions of people trying to survive and find a way to cure the zombiness that's not zombiness, and they need to kill this little girl that this man has now taken across the country to create a vaccine to stop the not zombiness. It's a good recap.
Good job. 10 out of
Yeah,
10.
thank you. Appreciate it. So
Okay.
when this man finds out, Joel, that they are going to kill this girl, Ellie, he saves her from certain destruction and kills all the people that he can see at the time that had anything to do with possibly killing her, taking her brain, and making a vaccine. So they leave. She asks him, or he tells her a lie and says that there were dozens of others like her that were immune to this disease. That I think I left that out earlier in my recap. She's immune.
Yep.
So he tells her there are dozens of others that are immune, and she says, "Swear to me that it's true," and he swears, knowing that it's bullshit. And she gives him this look at the very end of The Last of Us 1 that says, I know you're lying to me. Yeah, I know you're full of shit, but okay. And then game ends. That's possibly one of the greatest endings ever, where she's just, okay. And it shuts off. Then you find out later that they're making a second game. And a small part of me, and I'm sure a small part of a lot of people, were hoping that it did not follow Joel and Ellie because you ended their story in a good way. Just let it go. But Last of Us 2, Joel and Ellie. Here we are, guys. We want to go through a walkthrough on what happens, or we want to dive in how we feel about it first and then just hit things as we go along. We didn't really plan for this.
We sure didn't.
Didn't plan it. I would
Personally,
like to point on a side note.
Go ahead, JT.
So Justin, you described that Josh and I tried to play it, didn't finish it earlier. We actually did finally play through it on the remaster right before the second game came out. So we played the games back to back to completion.
Yep. We both beat the first one. The second one came out, and we beat the second one literally a couple of days in between.
Yep.
Literally, the game 2 had come out right after I finished the first one, and I was like, I'm gonna wait. Ghost is just around the corner. I don't know if I really want to buy a game right now, anyways, until Ghost. And then I couldn't hold it, and I fucking bought Last of Us 2 and played it and beat it. And I was like, okay, yeah, that was definitely worth the money that I just sacrificed.
Yep. When I of course pre-ordered it and got it digitally and started playing when it came out. I played launch night. And Michael, what about you?
The day after it came out, I had to go to Walmart and buy it because my internet is too slow to download it.
You
I think we're doing this over webcam because I might have the COVID.
I need to just let you know, just come over here and mooch off the Wi-Fi. You don't live too far away in our non-disclosed town. Come mooch off the Wi-Fi whenever you need to.
Yeah, I'll bring my PlayStation 4, drag it out from its hole.
It's not that bad. So
also, I like that you say it killed everybody, but
Brutally murdered.
Brutally murdered is what you mean, because
there are 2 nurses you can let live, I think.
Yeah.
No,
I let them live.
you can't.
You
let them
can.
live.
It's an option.
You sure can't.
You have to
There
kill
is-
the doctor, but you can't. You can let the other 2 survive.
So
I literally
I
burned
didn't.
everybody. I never shot a gun once. I used the flamethrower and Molotovs, and I killed everyone. I take that back. I did shoot somebody, the head doctor. I took the El Diablo out, blew his brains out, and then when the nurse was like, "Oh God, please don't," I took out the flamethrower and roasted them too, and then picked up Ellie and was like, "All right, let's get out of here."
You have a much more evil Joel than I do.
I kneecapped the doctor because I wanted to double tap him. Like I wanted to kneecap him, and then when he went down, finish him off. But apparently, even shooting him in the toe or the fingertip will kill him.
Yeah,
that's where his heart is.
Yeah, shooting him at all.
I had a similar experience to Josh. Only I just went out of my way to kill everybody, and then when I got to the doctor, I walked all the way up into his face, hoping that he would get out of the way, with the shorty shotgun pointed at his head, and blew his fucking head off and took Ellie out.
Like that's a very fascinating thing that game does, where you don't get a say, you really don't get a say in it. It's at that point you're taking that man out. That's all there is to it. And I mean, I appreciated that because you say you burned everybody on the way up there. I meleeed everybody I could because I wanted to feel that. I wanted the sensation of beating the life out of these people for what they were doing. And I got up to the room, shot the doctor, torched the 2 nurses, and picked up Ellie and took off. One ends on such a good note. It's such a well-constructed scene from the time that Joel wakes up and Marlene says, played by the amazing Merle Dandridge, when she says, you know, they can make a cure, and he's like, it grows all over the brain. And she tells that guard to take him out. When he breaks the gun away from that guard, asks him one time where she is, and is like, I don't have time for this, and shoots him in the stomach. Like that moment right there is like, holy shit, the man means business. Like he knows what he's going for, and that lays out like you didn't already expect that Joel's going to go slaughter everybody in this hospital. That moment right there is like, I'm on a relentless trudge through this entire building to find this girl, and
get to save his first daughter. So
yep. So it turns out really good. Then, like you guys said, you finished it. You jumped directly into The Last of Us 2. I picked it up and played on launch day. Michael said he played that weekend. There was a lot that came out about The Last of Us 2 as far as leaks and story details before the game was in the hands of players. I managed to avoid all of it, and I'm happy that I did. I had my suspicions. Everybody did.
I got one spoiler that wasn't a spoiler to me because they literally said it in a trailer, and that was Joel dies, because you can there's one trailer where you can literally hear Ellie say, no, let him go, or something to that effect, but she specifically says him, and I was like, okay, Joel's dead.
Yeah.
And that was back in September.
Yeah. So
the only thing that got spoiled for me was Joel dying.
Yeah. That's the thing. That's the thing that got spoiled for most people. And I know there were a lot of moves by Naughty Dog to kind of redirect that, right? And the first one was the ride along scene with Ellie and Dina, and the way that first trailer is cut with them, it looks like she gets captured and killed, and it's a revenge story for Ellie about her friend. And then there's the demo that was available that was playable at E3 and to some people, where you play as Ellie in, I can't remember the name of the town with the tall grass and the dogs and everything. Hillcrest, yes. There's the Hillcrest demo, and at the end of that, Joel pats you on the shoulder and says, you think I'm gonna let this do you on your own? Like he grabs you when you're about to be seen or something. And of course, in the main game, spoiler alert, if I shouldn't have put that up sooner, in the main game, that's Jesse, and it's swapped out. So there were some things that Naughty Dog tried to lead people in one direction and then moved them around. And I think it worked out really well. Of course, like I said, a lot of it, you couldn't have gone into this without the slightest thought that Joel is either already dead or he is going to die at some point in this game. And
yeah, for only playing I guess the first quarter of the game before playing it again right before The Last of Us 2, when The Last of Us 2 trailer, before I found out that he actually died, I was like, I bet Joel dies in this one. That just seems right. Now that Ellie's older, I feel like Joel is just gonna die in this one, and that's gonna be some sort of motivator for her.
Especially with Ellie taking over as main character.
Yeah.
I mean, story-wise, it's the only thing that really made sense. You had Joel's story in the first one. The second one had to be Ellie's story.
Yep.
what other? I mean, yeah, they wanted to make you think it was the girlfriend, but also Naughty Dog wants you to have a connection with the character, and there's no way they were going to get you that invested in a completely new character that would make you agree, especially with the kinds of decisions Ellie makes throughout the game.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have even been willing to go along at that point. But Joel, it's like, this is Joel. I was this person. I was responsible for everything that he did with Ellie.
Yeah.
And, which is actually great juxtaposition, from my opinion.
It really
how
is.
the two games play out. But like the first game is excellent in making you feel like you're responsible for all the things that Joel is doing. And yet the second game is excellent at making you go, Ellie, why are you doing this? I don't want to do this. I don't stop. Ellie, stop, please. No. Okay, thank you, Ellie. I guess I'll deal with that too now.
But at the same time, and this is like my entire platform for the second half of this game, the second half of this game, and you guys know what I'm talking about.
Is the first game.
It is the first game. You feel the same things for Abby that you felt for Joel in The Last of Us 1. Like, you have done some things, and you are doing some things. I, as the player, am doing some things that I don't totally agree with, but I get it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm on par with it. I get what you're doing. And it's very well handled.
That to me is the entire point of that game. It's kind of to show you that everything is bad.
Exactly.
Even the good guys are just bad doing what they have to survive.
Exactly. It's in our Discord chat.
I think one of the big reasons people hate Abby so much, even after having played through what is essentially the first game, part 2, or the first game again, is because in the first game, you play as Joel, who you've been told, and you can hear through context clues, he's done some terrible things and he's a terrible person. But you agree with what he's doing because you didn't see all that stuff. In this one, you're coming in knowing exactly what she's done that you already hate her for, and they're trying to make you forgive her by the end. And you don't forgive her, but you don't necessarily want her to be stabbed to death by Ellie at the end either.
Yeah. Like, I was playing it, my wife was sitting with me, and I kept saying that neither one of them's going to die. Like, I just have the feeling that they're not going to kill each other, right? If one of them dies, it won't be the course of the narrative about those two. It'll be something else in the world. And that was also one of my points about Joel dying. A lot of people felt that the way he went out was very unceremonious, considering that was your character in the last game. That's who you were attached to in the last game. For him to just be beaten to death in an early cutscene by a muscular woman that has no tie to this arc whatsoever is weird. It's not fitting. And as the game plays on, it's like, yeah, she had a major tie to it. And it was a little, I thought it was slightly cliche, like her dad's the doctor, but because I mean, I guessed that very early on when we found out she was looking for Joel. As soon as they took his ass out and they had him and Tommy there, I'm like, her dad was probably in that hospital. Her parents were probably in that hospital when Joel took Ellie back. And it makes sense. That's the one thing that I hated about it. Like, it's kind of tropish, but what other motivator could you have? Because there was an interview with Neil Druckmann where he said, you know, the early concept for Abby is that her and her family were in a caravan moving across the country when Tommy and Joel held it up and took a bunch of their supplies. And that plan harkened to The Last of Us Part 1, where Joel and Ellie are driving the truck and they get to the city and that guy comes limping out and Joel says he's not even hurt and like speeds toward him. Like, that's how Joel knows that, because he's been in those situations where they've taken over caravans and things like that. He's been on both sides of it. And the original, or one of the early concepts for Abby, according to Druckmann, was she was a survivor as a child of one of those instances. And he's like, that didn't feel full enough. And that didn't give her a reason to spare Ellie or whatever else. And in that game, in The Last of Us 2, her dad was the one that knew how to make a cure. And she knows that the cure is Ellie. So giving her a chance to live is honoring her dad and what he wanted, what he tried to do. even though she doesn't know anybody now that could actively make a cure like that. So there are so many tiny caveats that build up to this wonderfully arcing story about these characters. But I agree that when Joel dies, it feels a little unceremonious because it does happen early and there is nothing you can do about it. You're just kind of like put in this situation. The most incredible thing is they make you play as Abby leading up to that, even though there's no direct inclination that she's going to take his ass out that early. It's like, all right, here you are, you're Abby, you're trying to find these people, you get overwhelmed, you find these guys, they help you and get you to safety, you get them back to the lodge that you're staying in with your friends, and then boom, everything goes south from there. The death itself, while it was fast and not fully written out, it's celebrated throughout the entire game. His person, his self, it's honored throughout the entire game. So looking back now, after you finished it, I can't call that death unceremonious because of how much weight it had for the entire thing. Not only on Ellie, but the impact it had on Abby as well.
Yeah, like knowing that Joel died while playing 1, because that got spoiled before the game came out to me. I spent the entire game going, I wonder who I'm killing. I wonder if this is Abby's father. I wonder if this is Abby's father.
It's like get the sniper rifle and zoom in on him. Like, you don't look like the guy.
Nameless bad guy number 23. I think this might be the guy. I think this is Abby's father.
It wasn't until the Salt Lake, or you actually meet any other named people that are villains or people you have to murder. So while playing it, at first I thought it was Mike, I think that's his name, the guard. He shoots him because he's named, and I was like, he's got blonde hair, it might be that guy, that might be the connection, because he's the only person else that got a name. The doctor didn't even get a name.
Yeah.
So at first I was like, I bet it's him, but this is while I was playing 1. And then as soon as I started playing 2 and they did the recap, I was like, oh, it's the doctor.
Yeah.
As soon as they did the recap and they actually like gave him like a human face, not just like regular NPC kind of face, when they gave him a model actor face, I was like, oh, it's the dad. That's who Abby's father is. But yeah, the entire game, I'm like, I wonder if this person that I'm killing right now, I wonder if they have a connection to Abby. Because all I knew was Abby's father was killed by Joel, and that's the reason why she's kills Joel. That's the only thing I knew. So I was like, who is the father? While playing the game, I'm like, it's got to be somebody I kill in this game.
Josh is playing The Last of Us Maury edition.
Not the father. You are not the father.
Yeah, like you're right. When they gave him a face and took away that N95 mask, like just all right, that's a clear indicator. This is who we're working with now.
Yeah. Obviously I wish they would have actually left his mask on in that opening cutscene to make it a little less like direct, noticeable. But like I said, as soon as that opening cutscene happened where Joel's recounting the tale and he's got a human face, I'm like, it's the doctor.
Yeah.
This is that. I mean, I guess they didn't care that they weren't trying for that to be a surprise, is most likely. But I think it would have been nicer to be like, oh, that's why.
I mean, it makes the narrative make sense, right? Like it's a direct bridge, and you kind of have to go, okay, that's a clear indicator. It makes sense. Like I said, it feels slightly tropish, but there's what other way could you make that link together the way that it does?
I was about to make that same point. What other way could it go? Because anybody else that Joel killed, even before the first game when he was doing all his bad stuff, has not nearly enough dramatic impact to warrant that kind of retribution, like following them across the country, finding out exactly where they are and taking him out. Same thing with Abby killing him for it. There's nothing else that he did through that entire game that would warrant that kind of send off.
Right. Exactly. Like it would
have been an off-screen enemy that we wouldn't have cared about.
Yeah.
I personally don't like for his death being quote unceremonious. I didn't really see as like it became ceremonious because of the rest of the game. I just saw it as that's kind of the point. Like the point was death is sudden, death is pointless. You don't see it coming. They weren't trying to like glorify his death or anyone else's death. It was just he's dead.
That's what I'm saying.
Which is like that's like it's supposed to be a grounded universe. So to me, that's what made sense. What did people want him to be like? Them to be coming after Ellie instead, and him be like, Ellie, I'm gonna save you. then he jumps in front of the bullet, and the other people run away, and then she's like, I'm gonna. It just wouldn't have made sense. That would have been maybe more ceremonious, but it also would have been a shittier game for it to me.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. A lot of people thought that he deserved this big send off, and that's not the way this world works, right?
Nope.
That's like.
Let's learn that in the first one. That's not how that world worked.
Like now, you could make the argument that Tess had a really big send off, right? Like she finds out she's bitten, she goes out like giving or buying Joel and Ellie those few minutes to get out of the museum. Like you could make that argument.
But you don't get to see it though. Like so, I feel like that's unceremonious. It's all
you
screen.
can see her body afterwards, but you hear.
Yeah. But you don't actually get to see her like get killed. You just hear her get killed and then see her body.
Yeah.
Whereas,
if I'm not mistaken, you can make it to that rail in time to see her actually get gunned down. Like if you make it to the terrace up top, you can actually see her get gunned down. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure you can.
I'm not sure about that. Yeah. I've only ever seen her body laying there.
I've heard been walking around up there trying to avoid oncoming guards. Like the first time I played through it, and I hear the gunshots, and then when I find my way to the terrace, you see her body laying there. But I'm pretty sure if you just beeline from the moment you get control of Joel again over there, you can watch her get shot down. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. But anyway, yeah, like it's a more grandiose send off for Tess. You get what I mean? And
that's true, but at the same time, it's not really that ceremonious because that's also just how that world works. Most people know you get bit, you're fucked.
And that's the point for Joel. Like there's a cruelty to this world that you're not going to get this giant thing. You could make the argument that somebody traveling across the country to beat you to death with a golf club is pretty damn ceremonious. I mean, a lot of people don't put that kind of effort.
Yeah. It took him a lot of effort, and I love the way he reacts once he gets his fucking leg mangled. He's like, "Just fucking do it. Yep. Go ahead.
Exactly.
Just kill me. I don't want to hear your damn speech. Just fucking finish."
It goes out like Joel. Yeah. He goes out like Joel, and Tommy is a cockroach. We gotta touch on that at some point. But like. When we're thinking of unceremonious deaths, right? That game gets you attached to or natural deaths. I'm gonna stop saying the word unceremonious. You think about natural deaths in that game, like just regular deaths that fit. The game gets you pretty attached to Manny and Jesse.
Yeah,
and Jesse just opens a door, and all of a sudden he's got a hole in his face, and
Manny's trying to open a door,
Manny's trying, and he gets a hole in his face.
Like when that happened, I was like, "What the? Whoa, Manny! What the hell? Shit!"
Which one?
When Manny got shot,
yeah,
because you see Tommy peek around before Manny gets shot, so I was like, "Oh no!" And it was like
Manny just goes, "Oh fuck it," and then
yep.
I didn't see him peek around either. Like
I was like, "Oh."
We're trying to get that door open, and all of a sudden, like, boom, there goes his head. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, this just got... And I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, Abby's going to die here. But wait, no, she can't die here because, like, I've got like those threads plotted up on the wall in my like, while I'm playing. Like, no, this can't happen.
I will say, even though playing the game up until that point with Abby kind of like made me like forgive her, I'm not going to lie. If the first thing I did was when I was playing as her and I had to fight Ellie, was just walk up to Ellie and say, "Kill me."
When it got to that point in the game,
I haven't got that.
I definitely was like,
just do it, Ellie.
And I could just I was like, headcanon, I could just lose here and be done with the game.
Yep.
I don't have to see the rest of it. If I lose here, the game's over.
I was really surprised that the game makes you play as Abby for that fight against Ellie. Like when you first get to her, I completely and totally thought you were going to get the script flipped back and you're like, all right, I'm going to get to play as Ellie, but I know Abby's tricks. No, fuck that. You're playing as Abby and Ellie knows all her own tricks. So,
but also Ellie becomes kind of stupid compared to it's like you're using the exact same strategies as Abby that Ellie uses in everything you've done in the game. It's like, I can't find them. Oh, the bottle got thrown over here. They must be over there. It's like, no better.
So I didn't have that experience, as weird as that is.
Okay.
Apparently, the Ellie that I played against was next level AI because she was throwing bottles, and like I would hear a sound on the other side of the room, and like I would go into listen mode, and I couldn't see a signature of a person anywhere, but I know a bottle just crashed over there. And the next thing I know, I hear something, and I turn to look at it in listening mode. And I see like this light gray dot getting lighter and bigger. She was throwing fucking Molotovs at me from across the room. And like she was trying to psych my ass out. And
did I just play as like a dumb Ellie? Because
I don't know, man.
No Molotov. She just wandered around with her knife out.
Yeah, my Ellie was using the tactics that I use. Like she would put
she was
down
playing like
bombs.
me. Yeah.
You put down bombs to like corner me. I was like, oh my god, Ellie, calm the fuck down.
Yep. Dude, she fucked me up twice. I'm not even lying.
I was going to make the point though, going back to you talking about it being weird that you have to play as Abby for that, and like Josh said, there was a couple times he just stood there and was like, "Kill me." I think that's why, at least for the three of us on top, Ellie was made so difficult, or not difficult, but challenging to fight. And then every time she did kill you, it was a very brutal cinematic death. I think they try to give you some satisfaction out of accidentally losing to Ellie during that part and go, well, okay, she got her fucking revenge.
Yeah.
The game was...
Every time I did lose to her, it was because I ran. So like she saw me in front of her, and I was like, well, I guess I'll try to attack her from the front. And nope, she shot me with a shotgun or whatever she had on her, blew my fucking brains out.
Attack her from the front. She immediately just goes. Blah.
I couldn't get her from I couldn't get her from like even partially from the side, like at an angle. I had to be directly behind her, otherwise, like, nope, she fucked me up. Like she'd turn around and shoot me in the face. Like it was. I think it was really well scripted and really, really tense too, because it's that decision to put you in the shoes of Abby. And be like, all right, you're going against Ellie now. You understand Abby's motivations. You've had time to get attached to her. You still understand Ellie's, and you're still upset that Joel's dead. So how you gonna feel? Like, man, I really don't feel good trying to hurt Ellie. I feel really bad about these certain things. And like, I don't have to feel bad because Ellie's fucking me up. Like, I don't really have to be concerned about it. She's doing okay. So like I was not surprised by the way that fight really ended. With Lev's support there saying, "Don't do it. She's pregnant," or whatever. Or that's enough. Stop.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought Tommy got killed. Like when he got shot, I thought like, okay, he got shot in the head. Tommy's dead. So when when you're in the barn or stuff, when you're in like the nice peaceful, like that was the dream that Dina wanted. I thought it was like a hallucination, like right before her death. Especially like when she followed the little baby goat and she started having like PTSD. I was like, okay, yeah, this is all the dream sequence she's having right before she dies, but it wasn't. Because then Tommy showed up and he was like missing an eye, and I was like, or at first I didn't notice he was missing an eye, and then I saw Tommy. I'm like, but you got fucking shot in the face and died. How are you alive?
He got shot in the back of the head.
I'm the only person who because I've watched a bunch of like discussions and all about it. I feel like I'm the only person who when that shot happened, I was like, oh, she just shot off his ear and it knocked him unconscious. I thought he lost his ear. I didn't think he lost his eye. I thought he lost his ear. But just the same, I was like, he's alive. I'll see him after this. He was like the only one I was like, he's alive.
if it hadn't have been preceded by Jesse getting immediately shot in the face.
Well, that's exactly why I was more certain he was the one. I was like, they just gave us one like permanent death. I didn't think they were going to do it to Tommy. And then also I was like, no, that she hit his ear. It was
well, after the fact that he blew Manny's head off, I figured like that would be,
Well, I think she thought she killed him, but
she probably thought she killed him.
Like, he's unconscious because he just got hit, just kind of like grazed.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like,
like where you see, like, because you can see him get shot in the head, like, and like blow out like his fucking head.
Yeah,
because he gets shot right in the back of the head and it comes out his eye.
That was my point. Like, Tommy's a fucking cockroach. It's amazing because he survived all the runs in The Last of Us 1. He survived being a Firefly way before we ever met him, or way before we met him at the big part of The Last of Us. Because, I mean, of course, it's the beginning of it. But, yeah, he survived being married. And
also, he became an asshole after he got his eye shot out.
Yeah, he was a huge dick.
Fuck you, Tommy. I was fine at the farm. I didn't have to do all this extra shit. And then you just come around like, you just gonna let her live? Yep. You told me you were gonna kill her. You just gonna let her live?
Yep.
Try
to talk me out of it when I lived in Jackson.
Yeah, then he became a big asshole.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, like, that's the thing. His wife left him. Things are just not good for Tommy at this point.
Yeah, because now he's got a limp. He can't walk
he's
right.
Essentially like,
wife left.
You cost me my eye because I had to chase after this woman. You cost me my wife because I chased after this woman for you. Go kill this bitch.
And you lost me, Jesse. Like,
this is your fault, Tommy. We were planning. I wanted to go with a bunch of people. You ran off before us.
Exactly.
We could have done this together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to take a team of people, and you left and didn't say shit to anybody. This is your fault.
Yep.
And brimming off of that point, right? So Tommy gets shot. Like you said, Ellie and Dina live. They get their farm. Jesse does not live. They get JJ. That does not stand for Jesse Jr., by the way. It is canon. It does not stand for Jesse Jr. They get JJ, wonderful little baby. They have their happy life, this wonderful little taste that you just...
I thought like somewhere in a notebook it says his full name is like Jesse Joel or Joel Jesse. Like,
I can't remember.
He's named after Jesse and Joel.
Yeah. Like,
I know that's confirmed. I don't think I ever saw that.
Yeah.
Because literally Neil Druckmann had to say, no, JJ does not stand for... Jesse Jr.
Yeah,
and that was all he said on it.
Yeah, like he got that one a lot.
That it was Jesse Joel or Joel Jesse.
I think that's just like something people like, which is fine. Personally, I'm going with Jay Jonah.
I'm going Jack Johnson. So yeah, like you have this nice little happy life that we know isn't going to last because that's the world we live in, and we've all played video games. So she has those bouts of PTSD, and you're in this point where you don't know if the farm is going to get attacked before Tommy comes. You don't know if the farm is going to get attacked or if Ellie's going to leave. And then Ellie leaves. Like, after Tommy comes, Ellie packs up her stuff, and Dina point blank says, I won't do this again. And Ellie's like, that's your choice. And then she leaves. So you go on the trip to find Abby, and flash forward to being Abby, and looking for the Fireflies with Lev. You find that house. You go in the basement. You start using the radio. Somewhat of a poor choice in retrospect because other people hear you and abduct you outside. And then as Ellie, you get kidnapped yourself, and you immediately fuck those dudes up and get them to tell you where Abby is, and then go get her, right? It's a crazy roller coaster of things that happen in that last little bit of the game as you are storming the compound for the Rattlers, who are no ones, really. Like, you accept the fact that that's a faction in this area who do bad shit, but that's just the world that you live in, right? And after this much time, these 45, 50 hours that we've spent in the world of The Last of Us between these two games, it's no longer a point of, I don't care about this group. It's more, all right, these kind of groups exist everywhere because that's just the way the world is now, right? It's like, you're going to run into somebody. So we find Abby finally, and she's tied up on the beach to these pillars, and she is no longer the muscular powerhouse that she has trained herself to be for 4 years. She has lost a lot of muscle mass and has been starved, is hanging from this post, and can really just be let go. Like, you just, all right, you've been through enough shit. We both been through enough shit. You just go on your way with Lev. But no, Ellie feels like she has to finish it. She sees Joel's face, thinks about the things that she's done, and she's come this far. And then the fight in the water happens. In the fight in the water, Josh, JT, I know you guys didn't play the Uncharted games, right?
Yeah, I didn't.
Okay. Truesdale, did you?
I've only played 4.
All right, did you beat 4?
Yes.
This to me felt like the end of 4. When you and what's his face are fighting on that ship at the end of 4 and it's on fire. I'm giving a lot of this stuff away here, man. Cannot remember the dude's name. The main bad
I think it
guy.
starts with an R, I want to say.
Yeah, I think it does too. I can't remember what it is.
Like Rafi or Rav or something like that.
I can't remember. So yeah, you and this guy are beating each other on this ship with swords at the end of the game, and that wasn't the game before it. It was very much a third-person wild-ass arcade shooter, platforming adventure shooter, and that's kind of what happens with The Last of Us 2. The game changes dimensions. That you've had hand-to-hand combat in the game, but not on that level, and it shakes things up in the way you have to play out this last mission by bobbing, weaving, and boxing against Abby in the water and eventually try to drown her. But then Ellie lets her go because it's not the right thing to do, right? Like, it's not going to help her. Abby had her reasons. She has her own path. Just like Ellie said after Jesse got shot in the face, I know why you killed Joel. I know. Like, I get it. And like that kind of acceptance, that kind of understanding, like Ellie, like the player, this is the world that we're in. People do shit because things happen to them. So she lets Lev and Abby go. The arc of everything is just phenomenally well handled when you think about it. The loss of characters that you both like and dislike. I didn't like Mel. I was perfectly fine. I'm sorry about the baby, but everything is okay. Like,
yeah, Ashley Birch couldn't even save Mel.
Yeah.
To be fair, Mel had a point with her being a bitch, with Abby being a bitch, because I mean, she did knowingly fuck the guy who was her baby daddy.
Yep. Well, I mean, to be fair, Owen went out on that.
Oh, yeah, he initiated it, kind of. I mean, they both. It takes two, but just the same. It's like she could have been like, "No, you're with Mel," but she didn't do that.
She didn't want to.
And I mean, she could have definitely, with those arms, she could have definitely stopped Owen if she wanted to.
Could have held him off. Like that's an amazing thing.
The most surprising part about that scene is the fact that she's not top.
We talked about this before we started. We got all this. I told Josh's boundaries. we discussed this.
This is a serious game, no jokes.
So
it's all jokes, man.
Yeah, it's all jokes.
I mean, I have nothing. I don't know why anybody was so fucking butthurt about a muscular woman being a protagonist. That was so.
They jumped to the assumption that she was trans as well, so they thought they were making some point that trans woman killed Joel. I don't know what the point would have been there, but that's what they thought, so they got angry.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's just so fucking all of the weird backlash and drama that came out because of this game is so fucking stupid. Why not send death threats to the voice actress of Abby?
It's Laura Bailey.
She's literally, that's what she is paid to do. And also, it's Laura Bailey. If you lost her, you lose everything.
Like, it's so dumb. Like,
Look,
why? What that makes? How do you not like? Because some of the people were like, "You killed Joel," like, and we're like in like the things that like the screenshot. She's like, we're saying like acting like Laura did all of this. I'm like, how do you not separate the actor from the character? Also, like, I could see if this was live action, but this is a game. That was just her voice. They didn't even use Laura's face or body for Abby, just her voice. So what?
Look, if you're mad, I'm gonna go out on a rant for a second. But if you're mad about trans characters in the game because you believe in Jesus, if you believe in Jesus, you believe in heaven. If you believe in heaven, you believe in angels. If you believe in angels, you believe in Laura Bailey. So you just need to let that shit go, because the woman is amazing, and she did such a great job. Think about the body character and everything else. On the topic of trans, though, Ian Alexander, the kid that played Lev, him and his sister Yara, my favorite runaway performances of probably the entire game. Like, I thought those two were maybe the best handled and best constructed out, like, as far as like thin air characters that were given, because Dina had to happen. When you think about it from a personal growth perspective for Ellie needed a counterbalance that makes her want to be a good, better person, because her purpose in life has been taken away from her. Like, she could have had meaning if Joel would have let her die and let them make the cure, but he didn't. So in her opinion, her purpose is gone. For her to find Dina is for her to find purpose. That had to happen, right? So that made sense for Dina to be a character that came into the world. It makes sense for JJ to be a character, right? Lev and Yara are brand new characters, tertiary characters that were created out of thin air to give Abby substance. And it's handled so incredibly well. And the character arcs, as short as they are for those two, it's handled in such a great way. You see so much growth for Yara, and you see phenomenal growth for Lev, and you get an investment in those two. Like,
I think they did a really good job in that. Like, and it's really weird for like just half of the game, not like maybe less than that, because Act 1 as Abby, they're not in it.
Yep.
It's like a quarter of the game.
With Lev and Yara, like, I actually, when she died, I was like, no, I wanted both of them to escape. This sucks.
Yep.
But like,
that was another like sudden unceremonious death too. It's like, it's
yeah.
Yeah,
that's like, that didn't happen.
Let's move on.
But it's the world.
Yeah. But like, it's really weird because like while playing this one, it may be like a weird opinion, but I felt like this game did a better job of connecting Abby and Joel, Joel and Ellie together than the entire first game did, which is very weird because Joel's not in this game, and I felt like Joel and Ellie got more connection, like time to have those small moments together than the entire game of 1. And I think they did, like, I guess they learned from that, because the small time that you get with Lev and Abby, they tried to do the same like that they did with Ellie and Joel in this one, where they're like, let's give Abby and Lev like this connection. Let's make them like, go through this, process that happened to Ellie and Joel in the first one, but let's do it a little better this time, so they actually feel like they've got a really good connection by the time you get to Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
Santa
Barbara.
When you get to Santa Barbara and they're like, Lev's grown his hair out and Abby is the same basically, but you're like, oh man, they spent a lot of time together, traveling around, and they've connected, and it feels nice that they're together like this. It's just really weird. In my opinion, I feel like this game did a better job of being the first game than the first game did. Like, I honestly felt Joel and Ellie had a stronger connection in this game than in the first one.
The museum scene alone, like, really hits harder than pretty much any individual scene in the first one for their connection.
I manual saved before it, and I'm so happy I did because I manual saved after I finished it. I'm like, I'm keeping this forever so that I can go back to this whenever I want.
I literally went back in the like once you finish the game, you can go back and choose levels, and you can. One of them is literally that memory. And I'm like, all right, just playing through just that whole section again.
But to go off of Josh's point, though, I feel like there's a purpose behind that because the first game was very much Joel's story with Ellie. And you get to see Joel's development from this rough, gruff, this is just the world we live in, it sucks, to I've got a daughter again. I very much care about this person, and they make you emotionally charged and attached to that character in that way. But in 2, as Ellie's going through her revenge store and, in my opinion, slowly spiraling into Joel's dark side, that's who she's becoming.
Yep.
You get to see Joel and Ellie connecting after the events of the first game via flashbacks to flesh out how they were connected and how she felt about things. Just like I feel like Abby's story is straight up Joel's progression story in the second one. It's her going from a rough, gruff person who's like, this is the world we live in. It sucks. I'm getting revenge. I'm driven to a purpose. And then something happens and she starts to become a person again. And by the end of the game, she's a good person with good goals. So I kind of think that was intentional. I think Joel and Ellie were only supposed to connect on a certain level as much as they did connect in the first game. And then in the flashbacks, it's after they settled down and they're actually becoming a family, so to speak.
Your point on Abby is pretty much perfect because if you think about Joel in the first game, right? His daughter dies. Tommy shoots that guard or that officer immediately. That guy gets his reckoning as soon as Joel's daughter dies. And there's no lapse there, right? Joel's chance at retribution, his chance at revenge, was taken from him. He never got that. He never had the ability to reconcile on his own the loss of his daughter. Tommy did that for him because it had to be done in that moment. So Joel's world is taken from him. He has nothing else to live for. This is the way the world is now. That's how Joel becomes so hardened and grizzled. Abby's father is taken from her. She's alive, and she trains with this goal in mind to take out the man that took her father away from her. She works for it. 4 years later, she achieves it. She kills Joel. You get to see something with Abby in the shorter amount of time that you play with her than you did the whole game with Joel in the first one. You get to see something with Abby that you didn't see with Joel. And that's how hard it is to cope with getting that revenge in the moment. You see how hard it fucks up Abby, how it messes with her, and it becomes difficult. Like, her friends don't talk to her the same way. People don't act the same around her.
Yeah, they're all like, geez, Abby, yeah. I knew we wanted to kill Joel, but...
Nora's the only one that's okay, right? And we'll get there in a second. Nora's the only one that's okay. Everybody else is not okay with the way they killed Joel or the way that Abby acted or things like that. And she's not okay with it. It's still haunting her. She has nightmares about her dad every night. That hasn't changed. She's still alone, right? You don't get to see that with Joel. But while Abby is going through these things, you take on the word escaped me. You take on the child, right? To protect that younger person, to make sure they don't make the same mistakes like Joel did. So they're at two very different points, but on the same path. Just like Ellie and Joel on very similar paths at 2 different points, and Ellie and Abby, very similar paths at 2 different points. This game is all about parallels, and it handles those weights and those points in such a phenomenally great way.
Yeah.
Plus, another sort of difference is Joel, like you said, he couldn't really have revenge. He just was sort of floating along. He didn't have purpose until he was given the purpose of getting Ellie across the country and eventually made that connection. Where in this one, he had one purpose, and it cost her pretty much everything. It cost her all of her. Nobody liked her, really. Yep. I mean, she had her crew from the original place, but clearly they didn't. They all were like, "You're mostly just a soldier." Even like Owen, who she had been dating at one point, was like, "All you do is pursue revenge. All you want to do is train so you can get revenge. And so even that like relationship fell apart. And then when she got her revenge, she was like, well, I'd like to have these relationships back. And everybody else was like, no, you're a bitch and you beat the shit out of this old man. You could have just shot him in the head. What's wrong with you? And so she essentially was like, her journey was to try and recover something.
Exactly. It's very interesting to see. It's very interesting to see how those things are different that way. So on the topic of relationships, I just have to throw this out here real quick. My favorite part of the whole game was standing in that hallway, smashing square slowly and enjoying it when you were beating Nora's head in. I loved every second of it.
I tried to like, I was like, how long can I go? Is there a point at which she'll just do it herself? Or
yeah, like I sat there and waited. Like that.
I waited too.
The square button just sitting there. I'm like, don't do it, Ellie. And then I waited for minutes, and I was like, it's not going away. And then I hit it, and that was such a brutal hit. And I was like, and then I sat there and waited.
I gotta do it again.
Like she would just like stopped after the first one to like kill her and just get all that anger out, and it's still there. I'm like, I'm gonna have to keep worse. I'm gonna have to just keep hitting this square button, and just it gets brutal. It gets more and more brutal after each square you hit, and I'm just like, fuck, Ellie, I didn't want you to do this.
I'm happy you guys didn't rush into it then, because I didn't either. And like you see those facial expressions on Ellie and the way she's just like trying to look away and wincing and everything. It's so well done where you could see the trouble she's having with it, and it's not going the same way for her. The game pushes a lot of parallels of Ellie and Joel, and Ellie trying to be like Joel. This is one of them, and the other one you see very clearly with Mel and Owen when she's like, point to a map, and if it's not the same place that he points to, I'm gonna kill him. Like that's a Joel move that she knows very well.
Yeah,
and
except she couldn't quite nail it.
Yeah, she could.
Because she's not Joel.
Exactly, and I think that's the message the game is trying to push on her. This isn't who you are, right? You have the option to be somebody else, and it's very heavy the way all that stuff comes around, but it's so well done. With Lev and Yara, those relationships, right? In The Last of Us 1, at a certain point, actually, it wasn't long after I met Ellie in The Last of Us 1. Like, I'll do whatever it takes to protect this little girl. She's awesome. The way she's cussing, like the way she just goes in on Bill with no regard whatsoever. I'm like, this is it.
She's so like upbeat and like hilarious in the first one, and in the second one, she's just like son of a bitch.
Well, all
like,
that bad shit happens, man.
Yeah, but she never like cracks a joke until like she has a few jokes with Dina, but they're not really like, as soon as Joel dies, that old self like dies, because she like, even when her and Dina are like together, like in more intimate moments, she's still just kind of like, all right, is everything cool? You need anything? I think I'm gonna go back out. You cool? She doesn't really like crack any more jokes anymore, and it's not until you get back to the farm that she starts to like she's cracking a little more jokes and being a little more old Ellie. It's just so crazy how Joel dying just takes all of that from her, and she just becomes Joel.
Well, it's the timing of it, right? Because the game gives you all those details that things between Joel and Ellie are not okay at all. Like,
oh yeah, when they do that little flashback of the dance, and the last thing she says to Joel is, "I don't need your fucking help."
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, please don't let that be the last thing she said to Joel. Please be another flashback.
And then you get a
last thing.
Yeah.
It's like, please do not let that be the last thing you say to Joel.
I thought the same thing.
So much worse.
I thought the same thing.
I was in that camp, and then you get to the end, and it's like, even then, they sort of resolve it, but the last thing she essentially says is, "I haven't forgiven you, but I want to," and then he's like, okay, and then next day he's dead.
Exactly.
But I like that, because
it's definitely an improvement over, I don't need your fucking help.
Yeah, but I actually like that
like a shitty place to be like.
Like, I actually like that ending, between that being the last thing she said to him, because that it shows that they're on the way back to maybe becoming Joel and Ellie again. because like I'm not gonna forgive you, but I can learn to forget, or whatever. I'm not gonna forget, but I could learn to. And Joel kind of does his little, okay,
while trying not to cry.
yeah, like while holding all of the tears back, going, okay, this is good, this is progress. I'm glad I'm gonna have my daughter. I'm gonna have my daughter back. We're gonna work through this, and then I'm gonna not get a golf club in my head because that'd be weird for me to have happen to me. Everything's gonna be good.
But
I mean, kind of adds more to her want for revenge because, like, literally the last thing she said was, "I'm gonna try to fix this relationship with you."
Exactly.
Yeah. And then the next day, it's
taken from her.
I'm not gonna be able to fix this relationship with you.
It means so much more that because things wouldn't go back instantly to being okay between those two. It would take time. It means so much more that they started that path and they were ready to start trying to be okay, but they still weren't. And the next day is when it happened. It like that piece like put together is so it fits just right. You know what I mean? So it's handled really well.
That's one of the things I love about this game series, because in the first one, when you get to the end, when Joel's fighting through the hospital to save Ellie, I was so emotionally charged in that moment from my experience through the game that I did not care that the rational part of my brain was like, nah, that makes sense. They need to make a cure. Then humanity can hopefully go back to what it was. I was just like, no, that's my fucking daughter. I will kill anyone who stands in my way. And because I played the games back to back, I carried that emotional charge with me into the beginning of 2. So when Joel got killed, I was just as motivated as Ellie. I'm going to kill this woman.
Yep.
So when I got to play Abby, I kind of didn't care. I wanted to know the story because I knew it was supposed to be interesting, and it's supposed to be a different take, and it's supposed to make you question the relationships you have throughout the entire game. But I wanted her to die. And then slowly I started realizing, no, she realizes what she did was wrong. She got her revenge, and okay, I get that. But she realizes she went too far, and she starts turning into a better person, especially once she introduces herself to Yara and Lev. And she goes back for them. And I was like, this game does a really good job of making my emotions go 12 different ways at once. And that's what I love about these games. It just brings all that emotional charge to everything.
Yeah. With Yara and Lev, like as soon as I got them under my wing, when you go back for them and you get them to Mel and Owen are checking them out and they're going to help Yara's arm. I had decided that it's really great seeing Abby afraid of heights and the extent that she pushed herself to.
That was a great scene.
Yeah, the extent that she pushes herself to help this girl that she just met, but she knows it's the right thing to do. But me personally, as the player, hands-on, I was invested to the point where I don't give a fuck what I find in that hospital. I'll tear that thing down brick from brick if I have to. I'm saving this girl. And when I get in there and you meet the Rat King and everything else, like, here we go.
That is the most video game ass part of the whole game.
Oh, yeah. It turns into a Resident Evil game immediately.
Yeah, for the most part, the game could be realistic, and then you fight the Rat King, and I was like, what is this Resident Evil? It's like for a hot second, like just during that fight, I was like, what is this fucking Resident Evil? And then I finished it, and I was like, okay, right, this game is normal.
Yeah.
That's just that boss fight just was like, what? Well, I mean, I get it. This is an epicenter. Like, this was like a ground zero. So, of course, some weird shit would happen. But
that thing's probably 24 years old. It's been there since the beginning, and that's why it's so massive and mutated. Yeah. But yeah, that was very Resident Evil / Dead Space.
And it's made up of 4 people who all melded into one giant cordyceps monster.
And then one peels off. Yeah.
Yeah.
I said that to my wife while I was playing it. Because I was in that scene, I was running really quick back and forth in the dark rooms of the hospital, and Courtney's like, "Is this The Last of Us?" I'm like, "No, this is actually Resident Evil." Like, it just switched in the last 5 minutes. Like, and then you come back to it. But
was anyone oversupplied at different points in the game? Like, because I got so used to being, I had like no supplies in the first game. Like, I was always out of everything, and this one was like, all right, I'm only going to knife people, and I'm going to pick up every single thing, and then I'm going to make whatever I can to fill up whatever things I've used, like my Molotovs or whatever, and then I'm going to fill up my stuff to make stuff again, and then I would just hoard everything. And so by the time I got to that fight, I was like, all right, let's use the 3 pipe bombs. Okay, I've used those. Okay, now I've got this flamethrower that's fully loaded. Let me load that. And then by the time you do that, the little one's peeled off. And then I'm like, all right, well, I still got literally all of my ammo for every other weapon. I was just like, man, this fight's not as hard once you can get your distance from this guy.
Yeah,
then I still had enough to when you like fight the little guy, the little guy who peeled off when you go fight it in the other room. I still was just like, well, I have all of these shots for the hunter pistol. I think it was 8 shots, and I'm like, all right, bam, 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 bam. All right, that one's down.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I actually had this conversation with Josh as we were both playing through the game. When I was playing as Ellie, it took me until we got to Seattle to fire a gun. I literally knife killed everything.
Jesus
because
Christ.
I was so used to the first game where resources were very scarce. And sure, by the end of it, Joel was fully supplied and ready to go into battle. But throughout most of the game, I was running out of shit. So I was like, well, this game's going to be just like it. I have to knife everything and stealth kill everything.
Exactly.
And I got Seattle, and I'm like, wait a minute. I have like everything.
Yeah.
By the time I got to Abby at the end, I didn't know how many rattlers I was going to have to go through. So I was, again, stealthing, saving everything. By the time I got to the end, I had almost full ammo on all of my guns, including the SMG that you only had for this level. And then it's like, all right, now you're going to fist fight. You don't have any of your weapons. I'm like, well, what was the point in having everything?
Yeah. I couldn't craft anymore because like all my craftables were full. I had plenty of resources.
Like, I can't craft anything, and I can't I'm not going to use any of this right now. I'm full of my crafting materials. But I was like that in the first one too. I got full up in the first one really quick. It's really weird because I never really ran out of stuff in the first one either.
I ran out,
but I felt like an idiot recently because there was people talking about their strategies for the first game, which I ended up using for the second game, which is like when you're in a room full of clickers, throw a bottle or a brick, all the clickers run to it, throw a Molotov, you've just cleared the whole room.
Yep.
And I heard that and I was like,
in the first one.
I'm a fucking idiot. God damn it. And so this game, it was like, throw a bottle, there's all the clickers, throw a Molotov. That clicker survived, throw another Molotov. So I have supplies to make 3 more Molotovs. Let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, my strategy for the first one was bottle, brick, Molotov. Because in the first one, fire
I was disappointed.
is really strong. But in this one, they turned down fire because when the first time I used that strategy on like a bunch of zombies and they didn't all die, I was like, okay, they turned down the fire because it was too strong in the first one. But they didn't turn down the bow. As long as no one fucking sees you, you can shoot them in the goddamn leg. They instantly die.
Yep.
And I was like, this is the greatest bow in all of video game history. If I don't get seen or heard, I can kill people by just hitting their arm.
It's like playing Oblivion. You can just like crouch walk everywhere, shoot people with a bow, and you clear it. Yeah.
I got mad when we got to the Abby portion just because bitch doesn't use fucking Molotovs.
Yep. Like a pipe bomb.
She just uses pipe bombs. And I'm like, those are just a really quick thing. There's no after effect. They have to all be around the pipe bomb for it to work. Really killed that strategy.
Yep.
Yeah, I told Justin when I first started playing as Abby, I was like, I miss Ellie, and not in the way that you think I miss Ellie. I miss Ellie because I miss her kit. I got really used to what I was using.
Yep.
Molotovs and the bow exclusively. Abby does not get
someone's pistol.
Abby does not get access to either of those, and her crossbow is not as strong as Ellie's bow. Like, you can't do the as long as you're not seen or heard crossbow one shot. You actually have to get headshots with the crossbow. So I was like, yeah, I'm missing Abby, Justin, or missing Ellie, Justin, but because I don't have the bow and Molotovs anymore, there was a certain way I played as Ellie that I could clear everybody without ever getting touched, seen, and I would murder everybody. But now I can't do that as much, and I feel like that's kind of what they wanted. I feel like they pushed Abby to be more like
aggressive.
Yeah, head-on fights where Ellie's like, I'm gonna sneak around.
And that's where they fucked up. Because in the first part of the game, when I was playing as Ellie, I played like I played Joel in the first game, where I was true stealth. Nobody ever sees me, nobody survives. I played Abby as no survivor stealth. If no one's around to see them die, it doesn't matter.
I think they intentionally made Abby a more brutish character, one who can kind of take a hit too, because they were like, players aren't going to care about her as much. We can't we can't really make her. She needs to be able to fucking take a hit and deal out a hit.
That's a good point.
Players aren't going to care about her when they start.
The biggest thing.
You start with an assault rifle.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that pissed me off with Abby is you go back to Shivs. Like he got so used to that knife. You get so used to that knife, and all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, what? I got to craft these
She
damn
works
things.
for the WLF.
I know.
She's one of the soldiers for the WLF. How is a knife not part of her kit?
Exactly.
The knives were the rarest commodity when the apocalypse hit in this world. They just everybody appeared.
No,
they can give her a fully supplied gym because they took over like the Seattle Seahawks stadium, but they couldn't give her a fucking knife.
The soccer team's facility.
When you're in the hotel / apartment complex, whatever it is with Abby, trying to get to the hospital, I counted at least 9 kitchens with knife sets. I was fucking counting because I was getting mad. I'm like, there's one, there's one, there's one.
Just take it.
Exactly. Like I could just take that.
If she had taken it, she would have just taped them to her bat and been like, all right, this will give me 2 more hits on a baseball bat.
Yeah. Like
now, to be fair, it was the exact same way in the first game. Ellie had a knife in the first game, and Joel had to use shivs. Difference was Ellie was small, so she had to jump on something's back to kill it. It wasn't as easy. Yeah. You get used to grown Ellie being really easily being able to kill shit.
Well, it's
Joel, when he started, he wasn't exactly planning for that that whole adventure to happen. He was planning to take her outside of what was it, Boston?
Boston.
He was planning to take her outside of Boston and then return to Boston. Abby, she's leaving to go on a mission. She's like, give me the standard kit. Why doesn't the standard kit have a knife?
Yep. Yeah. That's the weird part.
I get 18 rounds of an assault rifle. Only 18 rounds, even though I'm a soldier, and I'm probably going to run into a horde. I get 18 rounds. That's all I can hold.
Give me something, yeah.
I will say there was one piece of the gun upgrading thing that really annoyed me, and that was when you upgrade the magazine size on everything. Your reserve ammo didn't increase with it. You still had a partial magazine left over instead of having 2 full mags like you get at the beginning. It was really annoying.
The weapon customization was kind of funny. How the weapons change as you upgrade them, but in ways that sometimes just don't make sense.
Yeah,
for
like she goes from like
somebody
goes from like a brown shotgun to you do an upgrade, and all of a sudden it's a black shotgun with a
like where do these
why
come
did you
from?
change out? How did you change out every single piece except for the barrel?
Yeah, it's like those are things that you would think are identifiable pickups. Like, oh, I found this here. I can install it at the next upgrade station. But
no, it's like I found some screws and now I have a completely blacked out gun.
I've used this forge here to melt them down into a stock.
One of the most ridiculous upgrades like that I found that was funny, Ellie's pistol. One of the upgrades you can get is a compensator, which for those who don't know what a compensator does, it goes on the end of the barrel and it's got ports cut in the top that vents the gas upwards. Well, then you get to make suppressors. And it looks like she puts the suppressor on over the compensator, which literally would defeat the point of a suppressor. All that gas would get vented pre-suppressor, and you got all that noise. Then you look at the gun after you get the ability to make suppressors, and that compensator
duct taped over the compensator.
Suppressor adapter. There's no vents. It's not a compensator. It doesn't function. Just a little annoying thing.
Video games. So, the overall game, I know I didn't have that many bugs in it. Josh had some fun ones.
Hey, nice to meet you. I can break a game if you give me a game. I'll break it. I've broken Ghost already. I'm here to break games. That's what I do. But yeah, I had a few bugs in that game. My favorite one was
a few.
I was in that apartment where you go to craft, and then some WLF soldiers pop out of a random room that's locked, and try to grab you. I was like, I've checked this room and it's locked. I guess I need to find a key. Psych. There were people in there.
And somehow her hearing ability doesn't hear the 6 people hiding in a room going,
room.
I did this beforehand.
Yeah. But so I was in that apartment, and I was reaching for something, and I noticed my arm never came back. So it was just fucking out. And anytime I like moved my arm, it was just away. And it like broke the hand so bad, like, because you pick up items and it actually shows you holding them in your hand. Nope. It's magically floating. Ellie's a psychic now. I had to restart my game to fix that. But it made aiming very hard because like the reticle was there, but none of the things that were there they were over here. So I like tried shooting the bow and I'm like, this is gonna be a weird placement. The arrow just fucking magically just
Also, it did still go to where the reticle was pointing.
yeah.
I was thinking, no, they did not. The reticle does not matter as much as the body. So you're just like,
Yeah.
I saw like one screenshot you posted where it looked like you were holding an item, but your hand was like drifting across the screen in front of the item.
I had an item in my hand and my arm was just through me. Yeah, there was a couple of other weird glitches I had. They just fucking
had glitches where the environment would disappear briefly and then it would pop back in.
Get gray
I never
boxed.
had anything like what yours was yet.
Yeah.
It really like broke my experience. It's really hard for like there are certain like bugs that will like break the experience for me, like if it like corrupts my data or something like that, or like makes me have to like go back to a certain point. But luckily all I had to do was like save and then start over and I was right back to where I was and my arm was fine.
You should be a QA tester with your ability to make, because I assume what you're doing is what I see most people do when they cause a bunch of glitches in games. It's like, let me hit this button. Oh, no, that's not what I meant to hit. Let me go back and hit this button. Oh, no, that's not. And then you hit like 6 buttons in half a second, and then the game's like, I don't know what to do.
Nope, I was just reaching for an item like underneath cabinet. She opened the cabinet and
spamming triangle.
grabbed the item and her arm never stopped being there. Like, I know this is the Last of Us podcast right now, but Ghost,
nope.
We're censoring
I broke the camera. Like anytime you do a showdown,
cut this out.
You know how it like does that cinematic sequence? Well, the characters will sometimes just walk up to me and not like do like the stop and then attack. They'll just walk up to me like they're just walking around like we're not in a prefixed camera. And one of them earlier today just sat next to me. Like he walked up and just squatted right next to me. And I can't get out of it. Like I can't, it doesn't ever time out or anything. I have to activate the showdown to get it to work. And if you do it wrong, it's a fail. So it automatically takes like all but like 1 tick of your health. And Saturday, every single showdown I did was like that. I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Like, were you restarting the game in between something? Or were you just like, I'm powering through this?
I just stopped doing showdowns after like the 5th one. I was like, okay, I guess I'm not doing showdowns. I'm going back to stealth killing everything.
I'm not. We just had a freeze on video and audio. Josh was talking about breaking games, and all of a sudden he's broke our podcast. Everything's fucked. Guys, we lost every. All right. Hold on. Hi, gentlemen.
Hey.
Josh broke our fucking podcast. Josh glitched out our podcast talking about breaking games, and he breaks our fucking
coming through the speakers.
Yeah, I'm talking about breaking things, and I broke the podcast. Everybody, see, I'm here to break
each other. Because I could tell you two were both talking, but I couldn't hear anything.
I was laughing.
Like robot noises to us. It was like,
Same here. I was just getting like every other sound, but it was just like a MIDI clip, like.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like to me. I thought it was my shitty internet.
No, but like both of you guys, both of you guys were frozen, like, or both videos were frozen, and I just heard beeps and boops and sound, and then I said Josh broke everything, and then I heard him laugh. Like, that came through clear as day.
Were you hitting a bunch of buttons again, Josh?
Can confirm he hasn't touched a single button.
I'm not cutting it out. It fits so perfectly into where we were talking. It's just part of the podcast now.
So on your end, you'll just have your audio going, oh, Josh broke everything.
No, it's still recorded, all of that. It's still recorded.
Hear all of our but it's hilarious because on our side we're hearing the and T's like, oh nope, you're just a robot. You know, like, yeah, Justin, you're just a robot. And then it's just and then we just cracking up.
Yep, we died.
Because then there was one last part where Justin came in just for a little bit, but it was very high. I was like, we just lost my shit.
That's my usual.
I was like, well, I assume my internet's crapped out, so I'm just gonna sit still until somebody goes, hey, something going on over there.
That couldn't have been better. It honestly couldn't have been better. In the middle of that topic, everything breaks.
Hey, I'm gonna show you how good at I am at breaking shit.
This wasn't even a game.
Because life is a game, Michael.
So The Last of Us.
One.
One thing that I know that we have talked about before, openly in the Discord, which you should join if you're not in it, is the Naughty Dog control scheme, because this game feels very Naughty Dog, but it feels like they got things on the right path with this, because
it feels like they fixed their shit.
Yeah. Like they're
still 1 to 2. It's a big difference.
Yeah. Going from going from part 1 to Uncharted 4 is leaps and bounds better. Like, it is so, because the control
still didn't like Uncharted 4 with how it felt.
And then you can't line up.
And then this one came out, and I was like, this feels good.
Yep.
Like, actually, granted, to me, it sort of like defeated the purpose. In the first one, I hated the gameplay, loved the story, but hating the gameplay sort of made me feel more in tune with not liking killing people and stuff. Like, the game made me not like killing people. And this one, I was like, ooh, that's a nice crunch when I popped them heads. It's like, this time killing people felt good, but the story made me go, I shouldn't want to kill people.
It's like the story in this one's really heavy, and it does take that away from you. But like, just that point, the gameplay feels so good. The controls in it feel so good, except for when Josh is playing and breaks shit. Like, everything just fits in a really good way as far as the way it makes you want to keep playing. Even after really, really heavy moments where it's like, I feel like I need a breather, that's what I want to go back to. Show of hands, when you finished The Last of Us Part 2, did you want to jump right into playing anything else? Anybody at all?
No.
I'm like, I don't want to play any other
really.
games. Yeah,
just kind of waiting for Ghost.
Exactly. That's what I kept telling myself. And when Ghost of Tsushima came out this past Friday, I had it down, I had it preloaded, and when I was ready to play it, I'm like, I'm going to do this, but I really just want to play The Last of Us. Like, I really just want to go back and play more of it, because that game is still like embedded in me. But I did play Ghost, and I'm happy I played Ghost, because Ghost is a lot of fun. I'm not having the weird standoffish issues that you are. All of my standoffs go phenomenally well. And I chained them together and everything, so works.
I had one standoff where for some reason I forgot how to do a standoff, so I just stood there, and then the guy attacked me. I was like, what the fuck did I just do? He almost killed me. What's wrong with me?
Like, did I miss something? Yeah.
But to go back to the Last of Us 2 once more, the ending of that game, to me, was extremely bittersweet, because you don't even get to see it until you reload the menu screen. But Abby supposedly makes it to that place where the fireflies are, because that's what the new title screen is. And then Ellie is just so broken. And
like, she even lost the last thing that connected her.
Yeah, she lost everything. She lost Dina. She lost everything that connected her to Joel.
Yeah, when you're trying to play that song and you hear like, because she can't actually hit the chords because, well, she's missing 2 fingers. I was just like wincing each time. You probably didn't hear a goddamn thing I was saying.
We heard it, but it's clear now.
But yeah, like, so, when you're hitting those notes and it's like, like I winced every time because she just can't hit those chords. I was like, oh man, poor Ellie. One of the last things she had for her connection to Joel is just gone. And then it just kind of like slowly pans and you just see her walk into the woods just to go somewhere.
Now, as someone who hasn't played an instrument since middle school, can she just turn the guitar over and learn to play with the other hand, or is that not something you can?
I was gonna say learn to be a lefty, but that is a ridiculously difficult thing to just teach yourself to do. You have to
unless you're already pretty ambidextrous.
Yeah, like you have to train your brain to think in that opposite direction. But it is possible. But then again, Ellie was taught how to finger pick, not use an actual pick. So she's used to using all 5 or all 4 fingers and a thumb on both hands, right? So when she's playing, she's doing this while hitting the frets. But it's all things that she could learn to do. However, let's take a step back on that sad ending for a second. When Ellie is trying to drown Abby, she does not have Dina's wristband on. When Ellie is playing guitar in the house, she has it on. At no point while you're in the house do you pick it up. So it's completely open, and it's up to interpretation right now because I don't think Druckmann has really said one way or the other. He's actually refused to answer where Ellie's going when she walks away. It's completely open on maybe Dina went back to Jackson, and maybe Ellie's already been there, and she just went back to get the guitar, but when she realized she couldn't play it, she just left it and decided it was time to move on. Like,
I don't take it as she went back to Jackson. I took it as that was the first place she went, which is why I got the feeling she didn't exactly expect to walk into, and I mean, granted, that's sort of describing your player perspective.
Yeah.
Granted, I personally expected it to be empty, but I took it as when she left, maybe she was going to go back to Jackson, but Neil Druckmann did intentionally leave that big because he said originally there was literally a part where she picked up a toy that belonged to the toy that was on the tractor that belonged to JJ. She picks that up and puts it in her backpack, and he said he took that out because he thought it said too much about what she was going to do.
Yep.
I feel like she probably went there first. And you're kind of expected to know that the house is going to be empty because from the distance you can tell it's in disrepair.
Yeah.
Like one of the shutters has fallen off and it just looks dirty. Everything's overgrown. But I think probably what would have happened in my mind, again, you're drawing your own conclusions, but I think she probably took that wristband off when she left because she felt like she was betraying Dina. And then when she came back, she was expecting to find Dina again and just get back to her old life because that's what she wanted. So she put the wristband back on.
That's how I interpret it too. Like when she left to go on that mission, she took it off because she knew that what she was doing was not in Dina's favor, and that was a gift for her. And then at some point when she comes back, anytime during her journey, when she fixes her fingers, when she sews them up, maybe she put any time that we don't see, because it obviously takes weeks, maybe even a month to get walking from where was it, Wyoming to California. That's going to take a long time to walk that way. So in that time, she probably put on her wristband in hopes that when she got back to the house, Dina would be there, and so she would still have that, like, hey, see, yeah, Dina's here. And then maybe that's where she leaves after she goes back to Jackson because that's her only other home. Or maybe she just goes on to just roam around because she feels like she doesn't have anything anymore.
Yeah, I have to clarify. These are not my thoughts. These are things that I read online as counterpoints I thought were really good, and I want to bring them in for conversation. My interpretation, again, was that she went straight back. The thing that caught me off guard with her going straight back is, like you said, the house is kind of in disarray. And it seems like it's a lot more unkept than just a couple of weeks would have caused, in my opinion, anyway. Also,
like I said, it would take months to walk from Wyoming to California, then California back to Wyoming.
even then, like, I mean, the house looks like it has been. The house looks substantially worse than it did when she left, and more so than you would imagine would happen in a matter of months. And I mean, I could be completely totally wrong in that. Anybody could be wrong. But the response when you get into the house, Ellie's kind of understanding of how things are. She doesn't respond to how things are just empty, right? Which again, you as the player, after the conversation with Dina, you know she's not going to be there. When you go to get Abby, you know if you make it back to the farm, Dina's not going to be there. You can just infer that from that previous conversation. But I don't know. There's the part of me that definitely wants to have the hope for Ellie. You know what I mean? Like that she finds Dina, because that is her new purpose. JJ is a new purpose for her. But at the same time, you know, Ellie's broken on so many levels. And shit, we live in a world without proper mental health support. There's no way that Ellie's going to be able to put herself back together. You know what I mean? Like, it's up to the player's interpretation for now what kind of world that is. And as far as I know, they have no plans for a part 3 or anything like that. Of course, they wouldn't say anything for a long time.
His exact wording is he doesn't know if he's going to go back. Neil Druckmann. He doesn't know if his next thing is going to be another game, like a new game, or if it's going to be Last of Us Part 3. So I'm thinking that means there's some sort of thought towards what a Part 3 could be, but he hasn't decided.
He said that like a week after launch.
Yeah.
But then since then, he said that he doesn't want to go back for Part 3 anytime soon.
I could understand why as well.
Yeah.
Backlash.
Yeah. I mean,
people haven't played the game.
Yeah, but look at the impact that it's had. Metacritic charges or makes people have a 3-day delay now, right? Like,
look, they said that had nothing to do with The Last of Us Part 2. That's what they said.
Come on.
I mean, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and I don't think anybody can argue against that.
Yeah.
Like,
it's literally like the most user-reviewed game on all of Metacritic because people just wanted to fucking shit on it the instant it came out.
Yep. It's I mean, it's gonna have impacts for a long time. That's really not one that I expected, but I'm happy that it happened. But if you look at the response from people who have actually played it that reviewed it, it's remarkably positive. And I think Druckmann's only enjoyed that. Now, I personally remember Corey Barlog's response when he saw the Metacritic scores go up for God of War when that released, because he videoed himself watching it, and he's just started crying when the reviews went up and they were all positive. Like, I kind of feel like that experience was stolen from Druckmann. I don't know if the reviews would have been flushed out as positive as God of War, but I feel like the joy that he should have, him and Hallie Gross and the whole team, I feel like the joy they should have been awarded was stolen from them in the weeks leading up to this, the weeks leading up to release. But it's still, they made a phenomenal game end to end, and they should all be proud of it. It's a fantastic experience. Not only them, but of course the voice actors, because Ashley Johnson kills it, and Laura Bailey kills it. And the few lines that you get out of Troy Baker are some of the best he's done in his career. Like, it's just, they're delivered with weight and emotion that nobody else could deliver to that particular character in those few of lines. You know what I mean? Like, you have a connection with Joel. He doesn't say much, but what he says is just, it hits in all the right ways. What he says and doesn't say, the way his character responds, the breaths, the sighs, everything is just nailed 100%.
Did you guys put the hat on all of the dinosaurs in the museum?
I did not.
He's like, is this going to be a thing? This is going to be a thing.
I put the hat on the first two, then put it on Joel, and when I found the second hat, I went back and did the rest of the dinosaurs.
Yeah. All the dinosaurs got hats.
And then that asshole goes and takes off the hat and puts it on another dinosaur. She said to leave the hat on.
Yep, it's her birthday.
Man, that scene.
One little note. I really loved what they did with the space shuttle launch tape and how did you guys play the
That was
little
my favorite moment in
from the first game where you played as Ellie and her friend when they got infected?
Yeah.
I didn't play it, but I saw a Let's Play of it.
Okay, so it was extremely reminiscent of that scene where they're in the arcade and she's telling her all the stuff because the arcade doesn't work, and you're having to do the button inputs and you're just imagining all this and you're seeing the health bars and you're hearing the sound effects, and it was just a really cool little nod to that. And I was like, that is fucking awesome.
Yeah. The the way they call back to the Left Behind is great. Also there is an entire comic series called American Dreams, I think it's what it is, that follows, I say entire comic series, it's a short thing, that follows Ellie before the events of Left Behind, and it tells a lot of backstory there, including where she got that switchblade. It was her mom's and was left to her, because remember when her mom left her to Marlene and everything else, like then Marlene found out she was immune and everything bloomed out from there. There's just so much to these characters in this world that's fantastic. So I don't feel like we've covered everything about this game. One thing that I do want to hit on before we move on, because I was getting ready to try to find a way to wrap it up, but fuck that, we're doing well.
Are we? I feel like
we've gone for a long time. You got to pee?
2 hours.
You got to go?
Wrap up.
You got to go to the bathroom?
No, I just want to stop.
All right. Well, one thing, and then we'll wrap up.
Well, let me get one fun fact in real quick because I looked it up and I don't want to be lost.
Go for it.
So I looked it up. To walk from the center of Wyoming to Santa Barbara, California takes exactly 15 days. So it's at least 30 days round trip.
And also calculating she probably had to stop and find food everywhere and
fight people.
Camp out. Yeah. So
it could probably take a month to 2 months to like travel between.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, JT. I appreciate that. Real quick before we drop it and move on, because we can drop it. The transition from Ellie to Abby, right? You play through those 3 days in Seattle as Ellie, and I knew that you play as Abby for a part of the game, but I didn't know where. But when that game cuts over after the events of the theater and the game cuts over and says Seattle Day 1 and you wake up as Abby, how'd you guys respond to that? Because for me, I was told, like, at first I was like, I do not want to play through 3 full days of this. But then by the end,
my instant thought was, oh shit, another 10 hours before I find out what happened.
Exactly. Exactly. You're like, that is a dick move because you got to do all this stuff now.
I think I can sum up the feeling of how I felt about that by this. The entire time from when I started playing Last of Us 2 to that point, I was staying up way too late because I didn't want to go to bed. I wanted to keep playing the game. When I got to that point, it was about 4:30 in the morning, and I woke up as Abby, and I went, you know what? This is a perfect time to save the game and go the fuck to sleep.
It's not a bad point.
Yeah, I knew it was coming. Like, I knew that you played as Abby, and when that point happened, I was like, now I'm gonna play through Abby's story, and I'm gonna see how she got here. So I was just like, all right, well, time to play as Abby. I don't really like her, but let's get to going. And like the first time Manny starts talking, I was like, I could probably enjoy this side of the story because I like Manny. He's funny.
Yes.
I like the story about him fucking that weather lady. And then when you're walking through the kindergarten room and he's like talking to the teacher and she's like, her too? And he's like, hey, a gentleman doesn't tell. And I was like, all right, Manny's hilarious. I want him to be on this journey with me the entire time. And unfortunately, he's not. But I was starting to go, okay, Abby might be fun because of the characters she's surrounded by, except for some of them, like,
Mel.
What's his name? Jacob, or the asshole that...
The guy that gets cut by Ellie.
What's his name?
Scarface.
Yeah, Scarface. That guy's just a jackass all around, and he got exactly what was coming to him.
Yep.
And
but
Nora,
yeah, like, Nora sucks.
Do what?
And Nora sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was just like, okay, all right, this is fine. I guess I'm playing as Abby now. This might be all right now that Manny's with me, and I actually kind of liked Owen and like kind of felt real bad for him because I was like, he just wanted to stop all of it. He was tired of killing people in the name of some other person. He just wanted to live his life happy and away from all this bullshit. And we already know what happens to him while we're playing as Abby, and like he's like, you know, saying all the stuff about like, you know, the Fireflies are no better than the WLF, who it's all the same, just a different name. He just seems so done with it, and he's like, you know, I'm out. And then like, you know, that Mel's pregnant, so he's like, I'm just gonna get on my boat and I'm gonna go fucking go somewhere. And
though it sounded like he was also gonna leave Mel. Be like, she can stay here too. I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
She can handle the kid.
Yeah. He's like,
that's if she didn't want to go, because he was like, I'm leaving regardless. So if Mel wants to come, Mel can come. If Mel doesn't want to come, she don't have to come. I'm just leaving.
Yep. Yeah. It's like she's got a good support system there. You know, she's got a good thing going in Seattle. Why mess it up? But I thought it was like you're right, because you know the fate of all of Abby's friends except for Manny when you get to play as Abby, right? Like, you know how it's going to go for everybody except for Manny, and then you find out what happens to Manny. But it's a really good change of pace where the game forces you to play as this person, as part of these people who've been giving you shit so far while you've been in Seattle, and against this person that you at this moment feel nothing but disdain for because of what she did in the early parts of the game. And it builds up that level of respect for her friends that want for Abby to do a better thing or find a way to turn around. And then you get Lev and Yara, and you're like, all right, well, she's got a purpose, something to build forward toward, something to help make her better. And kind of sits in the back of your mind like, man, things go really south for her at some point, because she ends up at that theater. Things go really south for a lot of people. I can't wait to see how this plays out. And you're right. You have another 10 hours before you find out what happens in that theater. And then
that's I think a big part of why the so controversial statement of video games are too long blew up the weekend after the game came out, because it's like, all right, you get to this point where you want to know what happens next, and then it's all right, start over from the beginning, play through all of this, and then there's a lot that her half of the game definitely has the most gamey sections to it as well. Like that whole part where it's like, all right, now you got to go to the bottom of this hospital and find everything. Okay, now you face the Rat King. It's like that could have just been cut somewhere. I mean, you wanted a grounded world, but there's the Rat King, who's not really that. I mean, zombies aren't grounded to begin with, but
yeah,
the cordyceps up until then weren't that cartoonish.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, I've done that, and then it's like, okay, now you have to make your way across a bunch of rooftops. Oh, well, actually, that was just before. Make your way across a bunch of rooftops to get to the hospital. And then there's that crane, which I didn't tip my controller the wrong way, but she just kept jumping off. Like, I just be walking, and she wouldn't even do the sway.
Yeah, it's not your fault.
I'd just be walking, and then she just go.
Yeah, you did it right. You were good. She just dove. She had enough of it. Goodbye, cruel world.
Well, I could tell. Usually, you can tell when she's like, and then you need to readjust. But literally, there was 3 times I'm specifically thinking of where she's walking straight forward. She doesn't sway or anything. She just dives off in one direction. I'm like, what are you doing? Now gotta start
I had
over.
that happen to me too. I was like, what the fuck? She was just fine. Why did she jump?
I made it the whole way with no problem
to make her jump like that. What the fuck?
I actually didn't have that experience until the very last part where you're scripted to fall down into the swimming pool.
Yeah, that's the only thing that happened to me is the scripted part. But all right, guys. As Josh said, we've been talking about The Last of Us 2 for almost 2 hours, so it's kind of fitting that we've gone this long. Two. But I want to close out my portion by saying that I enjoyed this game a lot. I think it is a very important game, and it's something that I might go back and play, but if I don't, that's perfectly fine, because this was a good experience that I'm going to remember and cherish for a long time, as heavy and as dark as it could be at points. Michael, your thoughts?
Actually, it's kind of a question. Did the second game hit you guys the way the first game hit?
A lot heavier.
Yeah, a lot heavier.
Not at first. At first, it kind of just felt like this is a completely different game, and then it started getting more and more heavier and heavier and heavier.
Okay. And how about like for the ending specifically? Did those like comparably like second one was heavier or?
Oh, the ending specifically?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, way heavier to me because in the like it I felt like it's more uncertain how 2 would end. Like it feels more uncertain how 2 ends, where the first one, like there is no doubt in my mind. I would like if I played that when that game came out, I'd be like, cool. That was one game that'll never need another game ever again. But like in this one, I'm like, I kind of want to know what the fuck happens to Ellie next. But the first one, I was like, I know there's a second one coming out literally like in 2 days, but I don't think it needs another game. If there's a second game, I think it should follow a completely set of different people and not follow their story anymore. So I have to say, like, yeah, this one hits a whole lot heavier. In my opinion, it like started off heavier. Like having played 1 and 2 right back to back, 2 is the better game hands down in all aspects, even the story. Like I said, I feel more connected to Abby or connected to Ellie and Joel from that whole 2 than I did playing as Joel and Ellie in 1. Like that's all you played as is Ellie and Joel in the first one, and I felt more connected to Joel and Ellie in 2 when you don't even play as both of them. You don't even play as Joel at all, and you only play as Ellie like through half of the game.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say as far as personal impact, the first one had a better personal impact. That game stuck with me, and just the way it ended. Okay, like that scene is just so well handled for those 2 characters to end that arc, that story, the way that it did, and like Josh said, 2 didn't need to happen. This game, The Last of Us Part 2, is like the video game version of El Camino, the Breaking Bad movie, because you had a really good thing that is over. It doesn't need more, but you gave it more, and it's only more of a good thing that gives you more story for this character. It doesn't give you a resolution. It doesn't tell you how they end their days. It's just more for them that helps you with a post text. And The Last of Us 2 does that. It does that in some very uncomfortable ways at certain times, but it's very good. As far as the endings go, the ending for 1 is more impactful for me personally. The ending of 2 is really good for how open it is, but I'm kind of at the same place I was for 1 where I don't need to know more. I'm happy to see that boat sitting on the shoreline at the startup screen in the daytime. That tells me that Abby and Lev made it. If they made it farther than docking the boat, if the boat fucking tipped over in the ocean while they were sailing and they didn't make it and it's just some random coastline,
washed up.
I don't need to know that. I just need to know the boat made it, and that gives me hope for them. As far as Ellie goes, I'm hopeful for what happens to Ellie, but I don't need more of that story. They can close it off there. I think both of these are ended in really great ways for what they are.
For me, I had a similar play experience for both games, which had very different impacts. So the first game, I played through part of it and kind of slowly, like the beginning. I think I got to the high school, middle school, where you get, and then I was like, I don't like the gameplay. I like the story, so I'm going to watch a Let's Player play it. And I hated the way he played the game. I was all about stealth. He was all about being an idiot and running in until he got it right. And I just couldn't stand watching him anymore. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to power through the game. And that was like actually when when PSN was down, because the what was it, Lizard Squad was attacking everything. And somehow that linked to trophies because I have no trophies for The Last of Us Part 1. I decided, okay, I'm going to power through the rest of the game. And I got to the end of it, and I was like, man, that hit me. That was a heavy game. I don't want to play anything else right now. I just want to sit and think about everything that just happened. For the second game, I was just playing it bit by bit for, I think, about a week. And then my job, which I'd been laid off from for 3 months, suddenly emails me. He's like, all right, we want you to start back to work next week. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to pick up the pace on this game. And so in 2 days, I powered through everything that was left of the game. And I got to the end and I was like, this does not hit me as hard. And I think it's, for me personally, a revenge tale, a game that's mostly about anger, even though at the end it's like, all right, we've resolved our anger and it's ruined everything. It just doesn't hit me the same way, especially the second half of the game where they're trying to make me really connect with this character who's already done this thing out of rage that I don't agree with to begin with. And it just never quite landed the same way. Still a great game. Gameplay is way better. Story is really good. It just doesn't quite hit the same for me. Like a revenge tale doesn't quite hit the same, I guess, as like a father finds a new daughter to love sort of tale. Like that just hit harder for me. And then that like sort of final lie from him to her at the end, it just cut. It just sat with me. Them having to go through all the revenge. She loses her fingers. It's basically an allegory for you've cost yourself everything. And what have you gained? You gained nothing. And for it, I guess maybe it's a played out trope for me. I don't know. I still love the game. I still think it's unique. I still think it deserves like its place in like of honor sort of in video games. It's among the best things to happen to PS4, but it just didn't quite hit the same way for me.
I feel that, like you said, this game is about anger, but ultimately it's about, resolution and release. And that carries a lot less. It has a lot of weight in words, but the weight of finding a daughter and getting a second chance and one, that hits really hard. I get that. JT, what about you?
Well, for me, after hearing both of you talk, I will agree that the ending of one was more impactful for me because it stuck with me. But the smaller moments of two stuck with me more than the ending. However, I will say the ending to me was heavier than the first one because it's like you've been through all of this. You've trudged through, 40 hours of gameplay and seen all of this play out. And at the end, Ellie's lost everything. And me personally, I just felt so bad for her because I'm like, I understand why she made these choices. I understand why I made her play through all of this, but she's just lost everything. And it didn't impact me as much as the end of the first game, but it was a lot heavier to deal with.
Right.
I don't know. That's how I feel about it. Either way, both games to me are fantastic, and they go down as probably, honestly, if I'm being realistic, the best story-driven games I've probably ever played. As far as gameplay, there are other games that do gameplay way better in different aspects, but as far as story goes, those are two of the best games I've ever played.
I got you.
Yeah.
Josh?
What?
Same question.
I already gave my
did
opinion
you?
on how, yeah. I think two is
Josh, you, me, JT.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah.
So I guess
one has a really great
I
ending
purged you. Sorry.
that was great because you came off my point about saying how two didn't need to be made.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. One has a great ending that is, yes, more impactful, but the way that two ends, I felt like I felt heavier about everything that I'd done through that game. Whereas one, it's only that small part. It's only killing everybody in the hospital that put any kind of weight on me. Whereas two, the entire game felt heavy.
Yep.
Like killing all of these people as Abby and Ellie was heavier because honestly, only Joel killing everybody in the hospital is the only time you ever feel like you are not killing bad guys. Where like you're killing bandits and zombies the rest of the time. This is the only time you're like killing like people that are trying to do good. Whereas in the other one, you're like, since it's flip-flopping, you're like, oh, the wolves aren't really bad. They're just trying to protect their people. And the scars aren't necessarily bad either. They're just trying to protect their people. They're not actively like, but it's more gray in this one. And then the first one, it was gray, but like there was a certain point where it's like, oh no, this is black. This is all like dark. This is evil. What Joel is doing right now is bad. Trying to save Ellie is not good. Ellie should die for the greater good. so I don't feel comfortable doing this, but I'm gonna make these motherfuckers burn. Whereas in the second one, I'm just like,
Yep.
I think the first game does a really good job of making you think, okay, Joel's been rough. He's had a bad past. He's not a good guy, but he's trying to do good. Whereas the second one drives home the lesson that nobody thinks they're the bad guy.
Yeah.
everybody is actually the bad guy.
I think that's a good way that The Last of Us 1, that portion, that last hour of The Last of Us 1, pushing to the hospital, that bleeds directly into The Last of Us 2, right? You carry that thought with you the whole time. Like, I wasn't the good guy that I thought I was that whole first game. Who am I now? Because I know there are other people trying to make their own way. Like Josh said, like, nobody's necessarily the bad guy. It's just people looking out for their own. But that's the world that The Last of Us gives us. It's the wonderful canvas that Naughty Dog has painted for us. I was
just gonna say the sort of the gameplay. Like, I think I've sort of mentioned this before. The gameplay for me, I think, is what really does it, because the first game, because you're in agreement for the most part with everything Joel is doing, you feel a responsibility for everything that's happened. For me, in the second one, because at almost every major decision point that Ellie made, I disagreed. I never really felt responsible for what she was doing, so it just never landed the same. Like the first game was the first time in a game where I genuinely felt responsible for what happened. Like, I made choices in like Mass Effect games and stuff, but I don't feel responsible. Like, it's a story that's still being told to me. But something about just the way everything played out in the first one, I felt responsible, even though I had no choice. And then the second one, it just never quite manages that for me.
Yeah, the first game fucks with your feelings a lot, like as far as the weight and the responsibility and the connection you feel to that controller and the person on screen being an extension of yourself. All right, guys. With that being said, we are going to wind this down, which Josh has been looking forward to for quite a while now. I would like to thank you all for joining us for our Last of Us Part 2 conversation today. This was a lot of fun. I think we should do this for future titles, should anything have the weight and importance to us that this game apparently did. Truesdale, I want to thank you for joining us today. It was great to have you. JT, thank you for doing a podcast. It was great to have you as well. It's really fun to have you on. Yes.
And goodbye.
Yes.
Bye.
And bye. Yeah, I'll try to find something to bring him back.
Debut and his grand exit.
I came here because somebody said something about The Last of Us.
All right.
I might come back in the future.
All right. Join us in a couple of weeks when I, for whatever reason, decide to do a Neo 2 podcast, and I'll just bring these guys bring JT back on, and Forza in a couple months when that comes around.
We'll do a cyberpunk one, and we'll all discuss how vastly different our stories hopefully are.
Oh man, yes, we might
take till January to get around to that.
We might have to do like a cyberpunk series about like the way things are evolving for us so differently, because if you
I just started my second character, and
if you just think about,
I feel like instead of all of us talking about our cyberpunk experiences, it's going to be we're going dark for a month because nobody's going to stop playing it.
No, everybody. Yeah, we're going to put this shit on hiatus. There's no way around it.
I'm trying to figure out how I can get my job to fire me in the month of November.
I've got some tips. I'll let you know. When we were playing The Witcher 3. We're playing the same game, and Josh and I are going back and forth. Like, dude, this happened to me. I did this. It's like, that's so weird. I haven't seen that, but this happened to me. Like, that sounds awesome. Yeah, like, we were playing the same game, but had such vastly different experiences. And if The Witcher, focused around one character, can do that, I cannot wait to see what Cyberpunk offers us.
Yeah, especially since they said the way side quests, I think it was announced today, the way side quests are going to play out, you have the potential to beat the game without getting to the ending, the main quest ending that CD Projekt intended, because side quests can come in and change that much.
That's pretty awesome. The outside world can impact it. Yeah. I'm so pumped for this game.
I'm so pumped.
Yeah, like I really hope this isn't like No Man's Sky. I expect so much more for them. But
credits roll.
What?
I say you're gonna turn around at the beginning of the game and kill somebody, and the credits roll.
There you go. Let's wrap it up.
Well, yeah, like in a Nier Automata, you can take out your OS chip and you beat the game.
Yeah, it's like you meet Keanu, you shoot him, game over.
We'll have to see when Cyberpunk rolls around. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Hard at Play. we go up bi-weekly on Roommates Gaming on the YouTube page for Roommates Gaming. I'm messing something up. But anyway, check us out. Listen to us on podcast services. Do both. Listen twice. A couple times. Don't ask why, and don't say that I told you to do it. Thank you for joining us. Have a good week. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Hey, what's up? I'm Joshua Shoemate from Roommates Gaming. You should like, comment, share, and subscribe for more content. Check out some of these videos. They're pretty good. I just stand here? Okay, just... Alright, cool. Yeah, I'm good.